Persona is my favorite video game franchise of all time. From the story itself, to the turn-based combat and the music, this series will forever have a place in my heart. The characters themselves definitely steal the show when it comes to these games though. Everyone has a favorite character, whether it's Mitsuru, Takemi, Yosuke, or even Joker. But for me, there's always been one specific character that stood above the rest. One character that I resonate with on a personal level, and that character is Kujikawa.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Now I know what you're thinking. Isn't she just an idol girl? Or isn't she just really annoying? And to answer your question, I don't really find her annoying most of the time. Rise is one of those characters in the franchise who has the most split perception on her of all time. One end loves the character for who she is, while the other half finds her a bit of annoying and asks, isn't she just an idol girl? But that's exactly why I wanted to make this video. Not only to shed some light on the character, but to prove Rise isn't just Rise. She's not just a celebrity character. She's not just the bubbly idol, and she's definitely not just the girl who cheers you on from the sidelines. Rise is a character about identity, burnout, expectations, and the fear that the person everybody loves isn't actually you. And honestly, that's why she's my favorite Persona character. Before we really get into the video though, I just wanted to take a moment and to say thank you guys for everything over the past year. Recently the channel hit 100 subscribers, which is just genuinely insane to me that 100 people are following me. I started this channel because I wanted to talk about games and characters that mean something to me, and Persona is literally in the channel name. So what better thing to talk about than my favorite character from the franchise? And secondly,
and the heart is strengthened through bonds.
Does that mean you're just gonna stuff me back in your head and pretend I'm not Rhea?
Persona! All right. Let's end this. Here, go. Persona!
we'll talk about this in a later video, because we'd be here all day if I tried to cover all this today. Without further ado, this is my video on the investigation team's navigator, Rise Kujikawa. Rise Kujikawa is introduced in late May, but not like the previous characters we've seen before. We don't meet her like the rest of the investigation team, where we meet her around town living a normal school life. We don't even technically meet her in person until around June 19th. She's introduced as a celebrity named Rizette, a Japanese idol. Everyone already knows who she is before Rise gets a chance to speak for herself. People recognize her face, know her name, and they know her career as well. They know her as this cheerful idol who smiles on camera and exists in magazines, commercials, posters, and television appearances. But that's the issue right there. They don't know Rise Kujikawa, they know Rizette, and that difference is essentially the foundation of her character. Rizette is the image. She's an idol, a version of Rise that the masses consume. She's energetic, marketable, and easy to advertise and put on posters. To the people on the outside looking in, Rise is not a teenage girl trying to figure herself out. She's a face people recognize. She's a product. And I believe it was the game's intention for us to see this part of her first. Because yeah, at first it's easy to look at Rise and say, oh okay, she's just the idol character. Every Persona game has characters that can be simplified or reduced to an archetype if you look at them from the surface. Chie is a tomboy, Kanji is a tough guy, Naoto's the detective. You see what I'm getting at? Persona 4 specifically is not really about those surface level labels. It's about what happens when the said labels start to crush the actual person underneath them. And with Rise, that pressure is obvious almost immediately. Imagine being known by everyone, but being understood by no one. Imagine having thousands of people recognize your face, cheer for you, talk about you, obsess about you, and still feel like you're not actually seen. That's the tragedy behind Rise's introduction. She's surrounded by attention, but that attention does not equal the connection she seeks. Millions of people know Rise, but attention isn't the same as understanding. And when you've lived like that for so long, it makes sense that you will start questioning who you are even when the cameras are off. The game shows us the fantasy first, the celebrity, the fame, the popularity, the perfect idol image. But underneath all of that is a girl who's tired of being looked at, tired of being packaged, and tired of being treated like the version of herself everyone expects her to be. Rise is not fake in the sense she means nothing, but Rizette by herself is an incomplete piece of the whole that makes Rise Kujikawa. She is one piece of her, not the entire person. And Persona 4 from this point slowly peels back the image to ask a much more interesting question. When everyone already thinks they know you, how do you figure out who you really are? This is really why Rise's story becomes more interesting to me, because her story isn't just, oh, she's famous and fame is hard. That would be a simplified version. Rize's issues run way deeper than just being popular. She's not just tired of being an idol, she's tired of being reduced to a single version of herself. By the time Rize arrives in Inaba, she has spent so much time being Rizette that she is not even sure when her performance fully ends. Her career has basically turned into her character, a version of herself who always smiles, always energetic, and always giving people what they expect. And when you perform for so long, even if that performance started as something you liked, it can start to feel like a cage. That's what makes Rize's burnout feel real. She doesn't retreat to Inaba because she hates music. She comes to Inaba to breathe. She wants to step away from the expectations, the cameras, the fans, the agency, and everyone constantly telling her what to be. And in all honesty, I think everyone can relate to this, idol or not. A lot of people know what it feels like to become a version of themselves. The funny friend, the smart one, the mature one, the person who always has it together, the version people expect you to be. And sometimes, even when people like that version of you, it can still feel lonely, because you start to wonder if they like you or if they just like the role you play around them. That is Rize's main issue. People love Rizette, but Rize Kujikawa is not sure if people would love the person behind Rizette. And that's just a strong foundation for a Persona character, especially in Persona 4, because the series is constantly asking what happens when the version of yourself you show to the world keeps clashing with the version that you keep hidden. For Rize, the scary part is not just that people see her, it's that people see an image of her so loudly that the actual version behind it feels unseen and invisible. Shadow Rize. Now, I think Rize's dungeon and her shadow can be easily misunderstood at the surface level or written off as, well, do I even have to say what people call it? Shadow Rize is very obviously exaggerated. She is loud, provocative, attention-seeking, and basically turned Rize's idol image up to insanely uncomfortable levels. But I think that discomfort is the point. One thing I've always found interesting about Shadow Rize is how exaggerated she is. Every shadow in Persona 4 is uncomfortable to some extent, but Rize's is intentionally overwhelming. Shadows in Persona 4 are distorted manifestations of a person's innermost feelings. It's essentially their purest, most honest form of themselves, except it's cranked up to 10 and they are extremely dramatized versions of said feelings, which explain why Rize's shadow looks and acts the way it does. Shadow Rize is not there just to be the fan service shadow of the game. She is a reflection of how Rize feels people see her. She's the nightmare version of being consumed by the audience. Everyone watches, everyone judges. Everyone wants something from her because they've seen the image, and Shadow Rize takes said feeling and turns it up tenfold. That is why her dungeon and her shadow work well thematically. Rize's fear is not simply people think I'm Rizette. Her fear is, what if Rizette is all I am? And it hits even harder because Rize is young. She is still figuring herself out, but fame forced her to become a product before she could really understand herself as a person. So when her shadow appears, it is not showing us a random hidden side of the character. It's showing us part of her she doesn't want to confront. The part that knows the idol version of herself isn't completely fake. That is one of the most important ideas of Rize's story, because Rize doesn't just want attention. She has attention. She wants to be understood. That's why her shadow's confrontation matters so much. Accepting the shadow does not mean Rize is just conforming to only being Rizette, but it's her accepting both parts of Rize as her identity. The uncomfortable truth isn't that Rize was forced to become an idol. The uncomfortable part was that she was actually enjoying being an idol despite how much she disliked it. She originally became an idol because she was being bullied at a young age and wanted to reinvent herself. She really did enjoy performing for people and entertaining audiences. But in the end, she did all of this just to find a place she felt she belonged in, which is what she did not want to admit. And that's why accepting Shadow Rize matters so much. Rize's growth doesn't come from rejecting Rizette, it comes from accepting that Rizette was never the enemy. The idol, the performer, the celebrity, those things are real parts of her. The problem was convincing herself that those parts were the only things she was allowed to be. To understand Rize's story and why it works so well, I think it's important to talk about the central theme of Persona 4. The entire theme of the game is to find or reveal the truth, and it's made clear from the very beginning of the series. In less than an in-game week, you're already introduced to the murder mystery the protagonists have to solve. The Midnight Channel and the fog in itself are built on the blurring the lines within the truth. The Ame no Sagiri boss after the main antagonist's defeat is also part of said theme. The whole thing about facing your shadow in this game is about accepting the true parts of yourself instead of lying to others on the outside. Every single member of the investigation team is forced to confront a truth they'd rather avoid. Kanji fears being judged for the way he is. Naoto struggles with the expectations placed upon her. Yukiko feels trapped in Inaba because she wasn't really given other options for herself. Rize's conflict is unique because her struggle isn't with something that's hidden. Her struggle is with something everyone already sees. Rise's story isn't asking which of these versions are the real me. It's asking, can multiple versions of me be real at the same time? She comes to the realization that both can coexist as her true self, but the game still has one important question left after her fight with her shadow. What does Rise actually want to do with said realization? This is also why I think Rise's social link is so important, as it is one of the best social links in the game. After the main story introduces her identity crisis, her social link gives it time to breathe and expand. After Rise finally accepts her other self, she starts to push away anything reset related, even going as far as stating she's never going back. Throughout the whole social link, we watch as she's pulled between staying in Inaba with everyone, or becoming an idol again. Especially at ranks 4 and 7, you start to see the facade break through really easy, and that creates an interesting conflict, because quitting forever seems like the obvious and healthy choice after everything she's been through and everything we've discussed, right? If the idol world burned her out, she should just leave, shouldn't she? Unfortunately, that's not always how life works. Sometimes something hurts you because you've developed an unhealthy relationship with it, and that's what Rise has to figure out. Does she want to be an idol because people expect it from her? Or does she want to return because it's a genuine part of who she is? And this is why I like the fact that Rise returns. Even when you do see and hear her deny going back to being Risette, you can tell there is some level of hesitation behind it. Rise going back to her idol life isn't character regression, it's character growth. She's not returning because Risette is all she is. She goes back because now she understands herself as a person. She's now aware that Rise and Risette are two pieces of a whole, and is able to return to that world without being fully consumed by it. And I personally think this is a genuine and mature conclusion for her. This is why her social link hits so hard for me. It gives her agency. It lets her wrestle with what she wants. And by the end, she feels like a character running away from her identity, and more like a character finally deciding what that identity means for herself. That is a huge part of why she has become my favorite character. Another thing I feel gets overlooked or simplified is Rise's role on the team. Gameplay wise, yeah, she's just your standard Persona Navigator. She isn't usually on the front line fighting with everyone else, so it can be easy to look at her role and think she is less active than the other members. But throughout the rest of the story, she fills another role. Rise may not be on the front lines physically, but emotionally she is one of the loudest parts of the team. She brings energy to the group, she brings support, she reacts strongly, and she makes the team more alive. Persona 4's cast works so well because they feel like an actual friend group. I could genuinely drop myself in the game and feel right at home. They hang out, they joke around, argue, support each other, and slowly become this weird little found family. Rise adds a lot to this dynamic. She's expressive, emotional, and sometimes dramatic, but that's what makes her fun. She doesn't fade into the background simply because she's the Navigator. I honestly think the role of the Navigator fits her well. It flips the script on her character. She's usually the one everyone is watching, and now she's watching everybody else. Except this time, it's not just empty attention. She's not observing the investigation team like an audience watches an idol. She is watching them because she wants to protect them. She's genuinely the emotional support system for the team more often than not. I could honestly talk about Rise all day. I could talk about her shadow, her social link, or even her role in the team for hours on end, but I just wanted to take a moment and talk about what Rise herself means to me. The whole reason Rise as a character stuck with me for so long is because her character arc stuck with me when I first played the game. There's something about a character who is seen by everyone, but still feels unseen. When I first played Persona 4, I don't think I fully understood why Rise resonated with me so much. I just knew she did. As I've gotten older though, I think I've started to understand it better. A lot of people know what it feels like to be known for one thing. Sometimes it's something you're proud of. Sometimes other people decide it for you. But eventually you start wondering if people are seeing all of you, or just the version that's easiest to recognize. The details are unique. Most of us aren't idols, most of us aren't celebrities, but the feeling underneath it is something a lot of people understand. And I think that's why Rise works so well. Because her story isn't about fame, but about identity. It's about wondering if people like the real you, or the easier to understand version of you. And I think a lot of people deal with it in different ways. And honestly, making videos and even other things in my life have made me understand her a bit more. Obviously, I'm not comparing myself to being a celebrity idol. That's just insane. But even when you make content, no matter how big or small, you do start to think about how people see you. You start to wonder what version of you people are connecting with. The Persona fan, the Guilty Gear content creator, the person always trying to improve. As of late, my Strive videos have been doing very well. On one hand, it makes me happy that some outlet of my content is doing well. but on the other hand, it makes me worry that my other pieces of content won't succeed. I enjoy making videos, but sometimes I start to think, maybe they're only here for my Guilty Gear videos, or maybe just my Ultra Rumble guides. At the end of the day though, I still enjoy the content I make, regardless if it becomes popular or not. Hitting 100 subscribers and making this video made me think about that even more. 100 people may not sound like a lot to some, but to me it means there are actually people who care enough to stick around and watch my content. And maybe that's part of why making this video for 100 subscribers feels so fitting. When I started making videos, I wasn't thinking about numbers. I just wanted to talk about things I cared about. Persona, fighting games, characters I thought were interesting, things that mattered to me. So seeing 100 people subscribe isn't just a number. It's 100 people who decided something I made was worth their time. And that's a really cool feeling. Because at the end of the day, that's what I think most creators want. Not just views, not just numbers. They want to make something that connects with somebody. I've played a lot of games since Persona 4. I've watched a lot of anime. I've experienced a lot of stories with characters that I love. And somehow Rize has never really left that #1 spot. Not because she's the coolest character I've seen. Not because she's the strongest. Not even because she's the most complex character in the franchise. She stayed up there because every time I revisit Persona 4, I find something new to appreciate about her. And to me, that's the sign of a great character. A character that grows with you. And honestly, with Persona 4 Revival on the horizon, I think a lot of people are about to experience Rize's story for the first time in a fresh new way. So no, Rize Kujikawa isn't just Rize. She's not just an idol girl. She's not just a navigator, and she's not just another comic relief character. Rize is a character about identity. She's about the pressure of being seen one way for a long time that you start to question if there's anything else to you. She's about burnout. She's about being loved but also wanting to be understood. And the reason I love Persona 4 so much is because it doesn't tell you the answer or give you an easy solution. It doesn't say Rize is fake, so Rize has to erase her. It says Rize is part of Rize, but Rize is more than Rize, and that distinction is everything. People are complicated. We all have different sides to ourselves. The version we show our friends, the version we show online, and the version we hide when we're insecure. Rize's story is about accepting that all of those pieces can coexist without one version overpowering the other. That's why she's my favorite Persona character. And honestly, for an 100 subscriber special, I couldn't think of a better topic or character to talk about. Games like Persona, Guilty Gear, and Scarlet Nexus, and characters like Rize, Nero, and Natsu are the reason I made this channel. This channel started because I wanted to talk about games, franchises, and characters that mean something to me. And Rize Kujikawa happens to be one of those characters. And hopefully by the end of this video, I made the case for why she is not just Rize. Thank you guys for watching the video, and thank you all again for 100 subscribers. This video took a lot to make, so I'll take a week break and then I'll return to weekly uploads. I have a couple big changes I'm planning to announce soon, so stay tuned for that. Be sure to like and subscribe, follow my TikTok, add my Discord, you know the whole thing already. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Persona character is and why. With all that being said, thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys for getting me to 100 subs. I'll see y'all in the next one. Persona Man out.
So can we